The humidity in the basement archive of the U.S. National Archives was a tangible thing, clinging to the skin like a shroud. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a sickly, sterile glow on rows upon rows of steel shelving that housed the documented tragedies and triumphs of American military history. Dr. Samuel Dorn, 32, a historian specializing in World War II field correspondence, wiped a bead of sweat from his brow, the gesture more a function of anxiety than heat. He was hunched over a battered, metal-reinforced footlocker, distinct from the standardized cardboard boxes that surrounded it. It had no accession number, no date, just a faded, hand-stenciled unit designation, 36th Infantry Division, 142nd Regiment. Samuel's connection to this work was visceral. His grandfather, a decorated but profoundly silent veteran, had always carried a darkness Samuel could never quite understand, a darkness that seemed to emanate from the quiet terror of what he'd seen. That need to understand, to excavate the past's hidden emotional toll, was Samuel's driving force. He was driven, relentless, and possessed a quiet desperation that often isolated him from his peers. Inside the footlocker, nestled beneath tattered uniforms and a rusty mess kit, was a collection of letters. Not the standard V-mail, but thick, personal missives bound in coarse twine, their paper brittle with age. They spanned 1943 to 1945. What struck Samuel immediately was the handwriting, neat, uniform, almost obsessive in its presentation. The content, however, was anything but mundane. The first letter he pulled, from a private named Elias Thorne, dated October 1944 near the Vosges Mountains, began normally, weather rations, a plea for cigarettes. Then the tone shifted. "But out here, Sergeant, it ain't the Jerrys we gotta worry about, it's the quiet. The kind of quiet that eats the sound, makes your own footsteps feel like an invasion. We saw the lights again last night, not flares, not searchlights, just lights, moving slow, below the tree line where that old village is supposed to be. And the trees, Sam, they ain't just trees. They got faces, the way the shadows fall, the way they hold the fog. I swear, the old man in town, before he ran off, he was muttering about the Waldeco, the forest echo, said it takes things that ain't lost yet." Samuel's historian's instinct warred with a creeping dread. These weren't shell-shocked ramblings. The detail was too consistent, the shift in narrative too precise. As he read more letters from different soldiers, different companies, different timelines, a pattern began to emerge, forming an unholy mosaic. All referenced a similar quiet, a sense of unnatural isolation and vague, unsettling encounters in remote, often forested areas near the German front. Strange, rhythmic sounds that stopped the moment they were addressed. Shadows that moved against the light source. Figures glimpsed at a distance, too tall, too still, only to vanish instantly. The most disturbing pattern was the culmination. Almost every letter ended abruptly, often mid-sentence, the final entries becoming increasingly frantic, obsessive, or eerily childlike. And all the authors were later listed as missing in action, MIA. Their bodies never recovered, their disappearances attributed vaguely to patrol ambushes or desertion. This discovery shattered Samuel's immediate professional goals. This was no longer just history, it was a deeply unsettling mystery. He couldn't trust the reports. He couldn't trust the official records that dismissed these men as statistical casualties. The sheer number of men from the same few regiments describing similar, non-combat-related psychological disturbances before their vanishing act was statistically impossible to ignore. He knew he couldn't investigate this solely through American archives. The events described took place deep within German territory. To find the truth, he needed on-the-ground access to local records, police reports from the immediate post-war period, and most crucially, German military archives that might hold counterintelligence or witness accounts. His application to the Bundesarchiv, German Federal Archives in Koblenz, was granted quickly, largely due to his prestigious institutional backing, but the real work would be in maneuvering the bureaucratic maze. He booked the first flight, the Footlocker's contents now photocopied, encrypted and downloaded onto a drive, the weight of a 70-year-old silence pressing down on him. Arriving in Germany, the transition was jarring. From the sterile, regulated order of the U.S. Archives to the labyrinthine, centuries-old streets of Koblenz. The following morning, he met his assigned contact, Lena Kraus. Lena was everything Samuel was not. Reserved, meticulously organized, and possessed of a formidable, almost icy pragmatism. She met him in the modern wing, her handshake firm but brief. "Dr. Dorn, welcome. I am Lena Kraus. I have prepared your temporary workspace. I must be clear. Access to our private holdings is restricted to specific approved files. The military records from the War and Cold War eras are particularly sensitive." Her English was flawless, accented only by a cool, precise delivery. Samuel, already stressed, felt the immediate friction. "I understand the protocol, Fräulein Kraus, but my research has led me to believe that there are gaps, large, anomalous gaps, in the MIA records for certain American divisions operating in the southwestern region during 1944-45. I need local police reports, perhaps even records from the Volkspolizei post-45, regarding any unusual incidents or undocumented mass graves in the areas surrounding the Hunsrück-Nahe region." Lena raised a perfectly arched eyebrow, her skepticism palpable. "That is a very broad, very sensitive request, Doctor. Unusual incidents is not a professional classification. We deal in documented facts, not folklore." The facts I have," Samuel countered, pulling out a sheaf of translated photocopies of Thorne's letters, placing them on the desk, "suggest an unsettling, non-combat pattern of disappearance. These men weren't shot. They simply stopped communicating after describing things that defy the official narrative. Look at the date. Look at the language." Lena glanced down. She was a professional archivist, rational, trained to categorize the irrational fears of the past and render them harmless fact. But as her eyes scanned the unsettling references to the Waldeco and the quiet that eats the sound, a flicker of something she couldn't immediately dismiss crossed her face. It was the historian's duty to be skeptical, but a deeper, more primal part of her, one tied to the dark, wooded history of her own country, registered a minute, undeniable chill. The letters were disturbing, yes, but Lena's training compelled her to find the logical explanation: stress, trauma, shared psychosis among units facing horrific conditions. Yet the sheer volume of identical non-combat narratives was a knot that refused to unravel easily. Samuel's intense focus, bordering on obsession, was difficult to ignore. "I will authorize access to the regional civilian police archives from that period," Lena finally conceded, her voice carefully neutral. "However, I will personally co-sign every request. You will see nothing that I have not seen first. Your research interests, Dr. Dorn, strike me as more literary than historical. I expect professionalism, not preoccupation with old wartime myths." Samuel nodded, a thin, nervous smile touching his lips. He knew she was a necessary, skeptical anchor in the face of what he was about to uncover. He needed her precision, her access, and her detachment. But as he watched her meticulously organize the photocopies, placing them in an acid-free folder, he had a terrifying premonition. Lena Kraus was about to lose her detachment, and both of them were about to confront a truth far more disturbing than any wartime secret. The silence of the German forests, captured in brittle letters 70 years ago, was about to be broken.